Born in Blood by COVID Candy. Chapter 181 Ravenous. Liam nodded in satisfaction. The Gushing Rivers sect was even bigger than the Snow Moon sect, and even the latter resembled a mid-sized noble family in terms of strength. His organization had been doing better than he thought. With 1/3 of them working in sects, Liam could ask for relationships between the clans, their martial arts and secrets. Though that depended largely on whether or not the blood troop could successfully become high-ranking disciples. At the same time, there's been a strange disappearance of a few piercing sword sect disciples. Liam gave a noncommittal hum in response. Jargon spent the next few minutes explaining every bit of information he received from the other troop members. Not everything was useful, but it helped expand Liam's knowledge of the territories. "That is all, my liege." Silence. "Good work," Liam complimented, before cutting the connection short after a terse farewell. Liam completed his cultivation and mental sphere expansion for the day, before taking out another rogue martial artist's corpse and wolfing it down in his semi-transformed state. He was carefully alert the entire time. Drifting away into his bestial instincts was a slippery slope, and one that he could easily slip on. He devoured the corpse in an hour, then instantly transformed back. Then, he took out the corrupted magical beast parts and daggers he made from them, spending another 2 hours studying its composition, its form and every intricate detail with his king's eye. In an instant, Liam cursed himself for not understanding something sooner, but then again, he wasn't a rank 2 magus back then. The properties of blood and bone were merged together. It was also why his blood weaving worked well with it. The properties of blood synchronized with one another despite them being from different species. That exact difference was also the reason the daggers shattered on impact. All of that led to a simple conclusion. Liam would have to combine his blood with the magical beast parts. He began with a straightforward method. Taking out his rank 2 middle-tier katana, Liam willed out the crimson from his pores and coated it around his blade. On its own, his ichor purity was roughly at the rank 1 upper-tier level. It went up a level after he became an Ashura, and his manipulation was stronger than ever. The thin coating of blood crystallized and sharpened. Liam formed a cut on his bicep. It didn't work. Instead of the coating and the blade cutting him at once, there was a shallow cut from the coagulation of blood, followed by a deeper cut from the blade beneath. It was like patting sharp steel with blunt iron. Instead of the two merging together and increasing its overall sharpness, that was what it was like. Liam tried a few more methods of forcefully merging his blood with the magical beast parts. None produced satisfactory results. This is an issue about time, Liam thought. Rank 3 magical beasts have rigid and sturdy structures. There really isn't a quick solution to this problem, since the blood needs to slowly absorb the blood on its own. Liam took out a preservation container from his ring and placed it in the middle of the room. It was rectangular with several lines of inscriptions running across its glassy surface. Running the sharp sword across his arm, Liam allowed gobs of his blood to pour into the container, enough to submerge 2 blades side by side. With that, Liam put the container with his blades in them back into his ring, then simply waited until he saw changes. The inscriptions on its surface would probably fade away, but that's fine. I've gotten good enough with sharpness enhancements that I could recreate it after a few tries. Until then, Liam moved to the piercing sword sect's martial arts. Martial arts in Alali were inscribed differently. Even the spells were. They were made through a special calligraphy, which made Liam realize why exactly they were so venerated. They were basically inscription masters. The techniques themselves served the same purpose like normal, but the martial arts themselves were way more detailed and precise. Through that, Liam began practicing a few moves he was confident enough to execute. He held out a disciple's inscribed blade horizontally, applied aura to it, then lunged forward with a quick thrust. Whoosh! The tip of the glowing blade shot a lance of air at the room's wall, piercing a pinpoint hole straight through the brick wall. Liam was a bit taken aback. Half of that attack was possible due to his movements, and the rest, to the spirit beast-made sword in his hand. It was masterfully made, with a metal sheen despite being made from bones. It was an inscribed rank 2 upper-tier item, and were layers stronger than Liam's blades. Storing them, Liam spent the remaining night attempting to inscribe a simple spell for his darkness, studying the various ranking spells in his possession. Alternating between studying blood arts and spirit beasts. /////. 3 months passed. Liam steadily raised his strength and knowledge as he traveled. The amount of sects and prefectures he had gone through were nauseating. Despite all that, his searches for the Temple of Shadow came up short. The north didn't yield much except for frigid temperatures and rogue martial artists Liam killed and devoured. He wasn't there for long. After the second month, Liam headed towards the western side. At the same time, the monthly reports from the Blood Troop gave him faint directions on where to go. Jargon and the members were steadily growing stronger, receiving better positions within their sects. Still, nothing came up. Finally, on the third month, Liam moved towards the eastern side last. When asking around, interrogating more like, Liam heard rumors of random attacks happening throughout an offshore island, ruled by the Ravenous Leash sect. The sector themselves were specialized in controlling spirit beasts. With his next goal in mind, Liam began running as fast as he could towards the island's location. Chapter 182 Intention, Emotion, Thought. Before he made his way over to the island, Liam made sure to buy some pills and elixirs to bolster his progression speed. Although his cultivation speed was slightly slower than the norm, that weakness could be addressed with the usage of pills. Which was also why Liam was in desperate need of resources. Those items became more and more expensive as the centers of power progressed. Although Liam had a little more 250,000 aura stones, pills that helped his progression speed swallowed entire chunks of his money. I'm getting close to the upper tier of the third rank, as well. I'm probably a year or 6 months away from advancing, Liam thought as he ran, using vanishing steps and fleeting foot. Although he was happy at the prospect of attaining more power, he was also worried about what that entailed. I'll need a rank 5 body tempering method after I advance. Does the Shadow of Temple even have one? If they don't, I'll have to make my own. Not to mention, there was the struggle tribulation he would have to face, leaving him in a near-death state unless he had protection. Eventually, Liam arrived at a cliff bordering the ocean. There was a dock there, but no ships or people. In the distance, a large, lush island grew visible to Liam's eye, 50 to 60 kilometers away. Zooming in, Liam spotted a large elevation, atop of which was a huge pavilion, even bigger than the Snow Moon sect. A humongous, marble statue of a roaring lion was built in the middle of the sector, with its front legs clawing the clouds above it. Liam was amazed by the sheer size of it. That should be the Ravenous Leash sect. That island is infested with vicious spirit beasts, which is one of the reasons people don't want to go there. Instantly, Liam stored his robes into his ring, then dove into the water. ////. It took him 4 hours to arrive at the island's shore. More than once, sea beasts and creatures tried to attack him, but found way into his stomach instead. Liam scanned the surroundings for any threat. Not finding any, he exited the water and dried himself off. Screeches, growls and roars entered his ears from every direction. In front was a forest with red-themed trees, filled with dense amounts of aura. Liam smiled. Even if there was no such thing as the Temple of Shadow, he would live on the island due to its high aura density. Not to mention, the Ravenous Leash sect actually interested him. Spirit beasts and magical beasts were right up his alley, and if they had any beast-taming abilities, he would gladly join. Spreading his senses, Liam realized there was a prefecture not too far from where he was. He quickly wore his robes and made his way there next. As he got near, he saw local men and women riding domestic spirit beasts on the main paths. Raising his head, there were large cranes carrying robed martial artists on them, heading to their sectors. Hiding his presence and avoiding the main paths, Liam kept a low profile as he entered the district. Compared to the other prefectures, it wasn't as heavily guarded, and sneaking in through the back was easier than he thought. The buildings were identical to any other prefecture, but there were plenty of shops selling rank 3 spirit beast corpses, weapons, and paraphernalia. Liam avoided the main streets that bustled with people and found a bar on the outskirts. Entering it, the first thing Liam noticed was how strong the bartender was. His mental sphere was on the same rank as Liam's, and so was his core. The body was a bit harder to probe, but he assumed it was a rank 3. Compared to him, the mean-looking men and women were much weaker. As Liam came in, they went silent and sent him piercing glares. Thankfully, Liam didn't bother hiding his aura, so they kept to themselves instead of attempting to push him out. Liam made his way to the bartender. His looks were plain, dark eyes, slicked back hair, a square face and short stature. He wore a dull robe, but Liam could see the frame of a blade hidden underneath his sleeve. Liam's eyes fixed with his. Although the expression on the bartender's face was nonchalant and aloof, his mental waves indicated otherwise. "Would you like a drink, young man?" the man asked casually, his eyes devoid of emotion. Liam remained silent for a moment. His mental waves spread out and pressed against the man's sea of consciousness. The cultivator's eyes flickered with surprise for a split second, but he pushed away the pressure with his own waves. "I want to ask something in private, if that's all right with you," Liam spoke in a low voice, hoping the bartender would read between the lines. A tense silence ensued, with the two looking at each other probingly. "You're a Korean?" Liam nodded. The bartender's gaze grew slightly colder, but his face didn't change. A moment later, he waved his hand dismissively. Those present within the bar lingered momentarily, before leaving through the front door. Liam didn't expect that. Initially, he imagined the bartender was some sort of martial artist with a dirty background, but having that kind of authority wasn't common. The bartender gave him a hard look, prompting him to explain. "The Temple of Shadow. Do you know where I can find them?" On his words, the bartender's face didn't change one bit, but his mental waves instantly flickered wildly. Liam recognized what emotion it contained. Through studying mental waves with the king's eye, he classified them into 3 layers: intention, emotion, and thought. Through battles and conversation, the first 2 were the easiest to deduce, while thought was way more complex. From what Liam could deduce, the emotion the bartender was going through was panic and shock. Liam could also sense the man's intention to attack him, but slowly reconsider. All the while, his facial expression didn't change. "I want to join their cause. I'm a believer in vengeance, you see. And I'd love to support them." Chapter 183 Lies. Hearing his words, the bartender's mask of stoicism was slowly starting to crack apart. "If I report you to the Ravenous Leash sect, you'll be executed on the spot. Do you have a screw loose in your head? Don't speak words you don't know the meanings of." Liam's gaze remained hard. "I know you won't. Why else would you be hiding in the middle of nowhere? I spent a total of 3.5 months looking for that sect, and they'd be fools not to take me in." Silence. Liam could see the flickering of emotions that became too complicated to understand, a mix of anger, panic, and slow intent to kill. He remained quiet until the man answered. Either the bartender was a Temple of Shadow member, or was afraid of someone from there. Nonetheless, where there is smoke, there is fire. After considering Liam's words carefully, the so-called bartender shook his head. "You are a fool. Searching 3.5 months for a lost sect. The attacks that spread throughout these regions are at random, and most of the time are done by extremists wanting to imitate the temple's actions." A scowl found its way on Liam's face. His assurant instincts told him to rip the man's head apart and force the truth out of him, but his human senses calmed his violent thoughts down. Liam couldn't tell if the man was lying or telling the truth. It was a mix of both, he was pretty sure, but he couldn't tell what parts. The temple wasn't the only sect bent on taking revenge on the attacking countries. They were one among thousands that riddled Alali. Another truth. Liam clicked his tongue in annoyance. "At least point me in a direction. Where can I look for them?" The man pursed his lips and shrugged. "Maybe head towards Th. Before the man could complete his sentence, a group of red-robed martial artists barged through the front door, kicking it open. On their robe breast was the embroidered emblem of a lion, the same as the ravenous leash sex statue. Beside them were ranked two spirit beasts, snakes, wolves, and lions that looked vicious and battle-ready. Liam kept his head low as the four martial artists, who were more or less the same rank as him, walked up to the bartender and gave the man piercing glares. "Are you Zeth? The broad-shouldered disciple in front asked. The bartender, who Liam now knew as Zeth, kept his face cold and emotionless. Tersely, he nodded. "Come with us." From the corner of his eye, Liam assessed Zeth's mental waves. His intent to kill was higher than ever, and so was his worry. Abruptly, Zeth's mental energies conjoined with Liam's. A private transmission. "I lied," Zeth transmitted after connecting with Liam, his gaze still towards the group. "Help me kill these guys, and I'll tell you the truth." Sighing, Liam shook his head at the man's deceptive antics. One of the martial artists saw Liam shaking his head and frowned. "You come too. I have a bad feeling about Yo." Liam blurred at the same time as Zeth. Darkness tightened around Liam's feet as a pair of blades materialized in his hands. The closest man to him was too slow to react. A corrosive line formed on both his neck and the wolf beside him. At the same time, umbral needles shot towards the other three at once. Shing. Poof. As Liam attempted to decapitate another, the disciple was already ready, barely deflecting with his bare hands that looked to be hardened with dark metal. Liam's shortsword found its mark on the man's elbow, forming a deep gash and severing bone. "What are you fools doing?" he bellowed, attempting to create space to avoid the fumes of smoke within the small bar. Meanwhile, Zeth managed to pierce his hand through one of the disciples' neck, his hand coated with a strange black substance. To the other, he hurled a throwing knife guided by wind, but a flame-spewing snake managed to blow the dagger away. A needle pierced the snake's head, killing it and exploding into gas. Liam's smoke almost damaged him too, but Zeth managed to dodge backwards in the nick of time. Out of 4, 2 remained. The two ravenous leash disciples grimaced in pain, their beasts lay dead and motionless. In a panic, they attempted to use their spells and run away. Below their feet, the ground trembled and jagged spikes burst from every corner, followed by a wave of flames that surged forward and engulfed the space. Zeth jumped back as Liam jumped in. He couldn't afford to let them get away. Liam activated the first form of Phantom's Way and managed to pierce the solar plexus of one of them, then swiped upward to cleave the man in half. A spike impaled his leg and shoulder and the flames singed his skin, but he burst through the veil of fire and hurled as many needles as he could to the remaining disciple. He fell with a powerless grunt as corrosive gas ate away at his flesh and bones. Liam heaved a sigh. He didn't doubt the entire city was going to look for them now. He quickly used his darkness to wipe away their bodies, took their rings, then made his way back to the bartender. The man's robe had been burned off due to the flames churned out by the snake, revealing strange tattoos over his body. "The truth. Now," Liam said in an even voice. Zeth shot Liam an incredulous look. "You're a darkness cultivator?" he asked with pure shock. Liam frowned. "Why do you think I'm looking for the temple?" Liam didn't fail to notice that black substance that somehow strengthened Zeth's body, but he saved those questions for later. Zeth chuckled with amazement under his breath. "If I knew you were a cultivator, I would have been glad to bring you to the sect. The temple has been looking for a darkness cultivator for centuries." Chapter 184 Meeting. "So you were a member after all." Liam didn't bother hiding the annoyance in his tone. Despite Liam's grave look, Zeth gave him a broad smile. "An acolyte, yes. Come with me, I'll explain on the way." Zeth left through the back door and Liam followed. "What was that black coating that enveloped your hand?" Liam asked as the two became blurry silhouettes exiting the district. Zeth made a cryptic smile. "Can't say. You'll have to be accepted first." Liam frowned slightly, but kept his reservations. The dark-eyed man kept his smile as he dashed through the forested terrain. The same jet-black substance coated his legs, somehow making him move faster. I risk a bit saying this, but whatever, it's not like you're going to back out now, Zeth added after a short pause. The temple is buying their time. What I said earlier was the truth. Some groups like to imitate what we've set out to do, but we've laid low for the past 100 or so years. Liam raised his brows. How was that possible? I was born and raised by the temple. Even my grandparents served as acolytes and disciples. The flame of revenge never wanes, even after death, it only rages stronger. After Zeth's little monologue, the pair arrived at a circular pit in the middle of a mountain crevice. The crack itself was barely big enough for him to fit in, but Zeth thinned his body and muddled through. A hidden base? With a sigh, Liam followed him through the crevice. The gorge rubbed his back and front, but eventually, he squeezed through to the other end. Instantly, he noticed how dark the space was. The shadows there were unnatural. The king's eye could see night like day, yet there were still patches of unadulterated darkness within the passages built around them. In addition to that, there were Alalian inscriptions written on the uneven walls of the structure, made from the same shadowy material. Surrounding them were countless burrows, each one leading towards deeper sections of the inner mountain. At the same time, the floor below Liam was covered with complex writings and formations. With their level of complexity, I'm pretty sure a zenith made these. Liam's eyes emitted faint golden and scarlet light in the midst of all the darkness, which bewildered Zeth. He was about to ask how that was possible, but decided against it. Come, I have to bring you to an elder. To think there's another darkness cultivator after so long. Liam let out a brief grunt in response. How strong are your forces? He asked. Zeth ran a hand through his hair as he led Liam down one of the burrows. We're as strong as a mid-tier sect, but after hiding for so long, most of our experts haven't been able to reap any resources to grow beyond that level. We have 5 elders at the zenith rank, and about 300 mortal-ranked cultivators. Liam paused. His plan of getting a rank 5 tempering method went up in flames. Unless he worked on making his own technique, he would probably stagnate at the 4th for months and maybe years. Still, he was being cynical. The fact that zeniths existed meant they had techniques above the 4th level. Though, with so many mortal cultivators, the amount of techniques and spells were most probably scarce. And your sect patriarch? Tell me about him. Zeth gave him a side glance. Only the elders know of his current whereabouts, but everyone else is kept in the dark. It's a known fact he's been in seclusion for centuries. And his name? Liam asked. Only the crisp footstep sounds rang out within the cold passages. Unforgiven Shadow. Currently the only darkness cultivator within the sect, besides you. Who knows, maybe he'll even leave his seclusion to meet with you. Liam went pensively silent. The conversation died from there on out, leaving Liam to silently contemplate his situation. Overall, his circumstances were decent. The temple was safe from any internal or external threat, and the patriarch was at a higher level than the 5 zeniths. 3 hours passed. The two eventually came face to face to a shadowy, circular entrance imbued within the wall itself. Another formation? Liam wondered. The danger he sensed from that wall made the hair on his skin rise. I'm sure if I touch that, I'll die instantly. Zeth placed his black-coated palm on the entrance and the shadows dispersed, revealing a dimly lit hole to pass through. Zeth entered first, and Liam followed. Inside, revealed a vast, circular dungeon. The walls were covered with the same shadows as before, except they covered every small patch of stone. Liam's mental waves couldn't pass through those shadows. It was like an isolation chamber, allowing no light or senses to pass through the enclosed space. No wonder they'd been hidden for that long. This place is basically layer after layer of protection. Liam shifted his gaze forward, to the vast, circular, dome-like area surrounding them. In the distance, a giant Aztec-like temple made from black stone stood tall, surrounded by smaller buildings of a similar structure. It wasn't as big as the lion statue Liam saw, but it resembled the giant pyramids back on Earth. The amount of aura emitting from it wasn't as dense as the House of Honor, but undoubtedly close. At least my core and body have a chance to advance at a faster rate, Liam thought. Tight, dark-robed men and women walked this way, and some nearby gave Liam frowned looks. They're all lower ranked than me. Some don't even have awakened mental spheres. His early hypothesis of the temple having lower ranking techniques proved true. Liam grimaced, then saw the same, dark blue tattoos inscribed across their bare forearms and skin. Are they inscriptions of some sort? Liam wondered as he took in the sights. Come, the elders are inside the temple. We need to set a meeting. Chapter 185 Shadow. Liam was tense. The first time he had met with a Zenith was with Patriarch Edwin, and that meeting got his heart pumping nervously. Although he kept a calm face, he was worried if the Zenith was going to find out about his king's eye in chaos. The same thing applied in the present, under even graver circumstances. Liam was from a different race altogether. He had a completely different center of power in his solar plexus, but thankfully, the chaos inside it wasn't visible to even Zeniths. Edwin hadn't seen it despite having a rank 4 sea of consciousness to probe his mind and body with. However, the chaos pearl was still a physical organ. He couldn't hide its appearance from them even if he tried. There's no choice, Liam thought as he followed a short distance behind Zeph. The only issue is how they will react. Even if I transform into a full Ashura, I doubt I can even scratch their bodies. Behind Zeph, a cold aura started to spread from Liam. Zeph, you fool. A deep voice rang out from one of the triangular houses, and a thick-bearded, burly, tall man exited, making a beeline towards Liam and Zeph. What did you do to your outpost? You killed 4 members of the Leash sect? His voice was unnaturally loud and powerful, and Liam had to brace his consciousness to withstand the pressure. Liam instantly realized the man's mental capabilities as a rank 3 sea of consciousness. Krell, relax, it was for a good reason. Zeph tried to calm the menacing figure down as he got closer, but the enraged frown on his face wasn't quelled in the least. Bam! A punch landed on Zeph's face, sending him flying. When Krell's green eyes fell on Liam, his grimace deepened. Pressure grew around him and enveloped Liam's mental sphere. Who are you? Liam used thicken and took a wide jump backwards to distance himself. In his human form, the deep pressure pressing against his mental sphere was enough to riddle it with cracks. Frowning, he unsheathed blades and prepared for a fight, when Zeph jumped in front of the man. He's of the darkness element. Almost instantly, the pressure lessened, and Krell's face flickered with surprise. He looked at Liam in a different light. He wants to join the temple. He helped kill those 4 and left no witnesses, too. Liam still kept his distance despite the lesser pressure. By then, a small crowd had gathered around the commotion. They looked at Liam with hostility in their eyes, but they couldn't do anything. The dangerous aura made them think twice about approaching. Liam's cold eyes shifted left and right, the grip on his blades tightening. A tense silence stilled the air. All the surrounding members were waiting on the strongest of them to grant permission for battle. Let him pass. Krell broke the silence and dismissed the acolytes, who lingered momentarily before going back to their spaces. Leave us, Krell asked Zeph and turned around, looking over his shoulder and gesturing for Liam to follow him. Come with me. I can bring you to an elder. Zeph nodded and exchanged a short look with Liam, before leaving himself. Reluctantly, Liam followed, keeping a safe distance away from the rank 3 cultivator. He didn't sheath his blades, but Krell didn't blame him for it. You better hide those blades if you're granted a meeting. Liam let out a noncommittal hum in response, his attention fixed on the countless writings riddling the temple's surface. A ramp ran through from the base to the peak of the pyramid, and brilliant inscriptions covered its surface. There was a small entrance at the base, and that's where the pair entered through. Passing through a series of dark corridors, Liam was led to a small entrance. It was the same shadow-made formation radiating danger. Krell coated his hand in black and placed his hand on the wall. The entrance opened, revealing a large circular room filled with deep pressure, enough to force Liam to his knees as soon as the doors opened. He suppressed a curse and used thicken to bear the pain. Krell entered with an enduring grimace and made a respectful gesture, putting his fist on his chest. In front and above, an eccentrically masked woman wearing an inscribed black robe sat above an earth-made tower in cultivation. Only her pale nose and plump lips were visible, showing no discomfort despite the mountainous pressure in the room. Noticing the intrusion, the woman's lips tightened to a frown, and with the wave of her hand, the weight on their minds disappeared. Liam began panting heavily as he sat crouched on one knee. "Elder Jane, forgive my intrusion, but I have crucial news." Krell began sweating under the elder's piercing gaze. That exact gaze shifted towards Liam, who felt no gentleness under her eyes. Despite that, he raised his head and looked at her with respect, imitating Krell's gesture. Elder Jane's mental waves invaded both his mind and body, thoroughly inspecting every corner of his body, including his chaos pearl. Her lips tightened even further as she had no idea what she was looking at. "What are you?" she eventually asked. Her voice was low and soothing, but the coldness in her tone overpowered everything else. "I can see you're of darkness, but your body structure does not resemble a human's. You even lack a male apparatus." Krell raised his brows, aghast. "What now?" Elder Jane waved a hand and dismissed him before he could voice his concerns, closing the door behind him as he left. Liam sighed under his breath, giving the woman a wry smile. "It's a long story." Elder Jane didn't like his words. "I have time." "Explain." Elder Jane's figure suddenly turned into a silhouette of shadows that sunk into the tower. A moment later, she reappeared from the ground below Liam's feet, emerging from a puddle of darkness as though she had just teleported from there. Chapter 186 Apparatus. Liam was taken aback. The zenith-ranked elder appeared from within the earth. As though one end of a tunnel had formed on the tower she was sitting upon and the other right below Liam's feet. At the moment, she was giving Liam an impatient look, despite most of her facial features covered with the ornate mask. Her lips were tightened. "Well?" Liam gave a wry smile, cupping his hands respectfully. "You see, Elder Jane, I have a binding oath that stops me from divulging information about my body. I'm afraid there's nothing I can tell you." Elder Jane frowned. "Lies." Liam's smile slowly lessened. "I cannot sense any binding oath on any of your organs." Elder Jane flickered her right wrist. A black blade appeared in her grip, cutting through air despite being held perfectly still. It was barely the size of Liam's hand, yet the edges radiated immense sharpness that prickled the hair on his skin. A rank 4 inscribed item. Liam's instinct screamed at him to run away, but he knew the elder was way faster than him. Any tense movement could be regarded as an attempt to run or attack. Hence, he didn't move a muscle, but inwardly prepared to defend. The next moment, the woman waved her hand. Liam's altered appearance dissipated at once, revealing his real features. "I'll ask one last time. What are you?" Liam remained silent with a hard gaze, sensing the woman's growing frustration. He could tell she was suppressing the urge to pressure him, either due to his darkness element, or his mysterious body structure. Either way, that patience was running out. "I want reassurance that whatever I say won't leave this room. You can say it to the other elders and your patriarch, but never beyond that," Liam voiced with a reluctant gaze. Elder Jane was intrigued, both at Liam's personality and reluctance to answer. Not many mortal-ranked cultivators had the nerve and audacity to demand something from a zenith. Not to mention Liam's young appearance. "You have my word." Noticing the unsatisfied look on Liam's face, the elder reassured him. "It's not something I give lightly, nor often. Any more than this and I will force the answers out from you." Liam's eyes grew cold with defiance. Keeping his race a secret was ideal, of course, but that information itself didn't matter too much. After all, the Asuras had become merely a children's story. The true knowledge regarding them belonged to the higher-ups of the surrounding countries. Millennia had passed since then. Not to mention, the Temple of Shadow was known only in Alali, and even then, their grudge was against the surrounding countries, not Liam's forgotten race. He expected as much of a risk, but he was willing to take it. A gamble for privacy and special treatment as opposed to suppression and competition. I am human. Partly, he said. Elder Jane's lips twitched. And the other part, she asked. Liam lingered, dragging out the silence as much as he could, before responding in an even voice. Ashura. Silence. Elder Jane frowned. Her mental waves invaded Liam's body again, way less gentle compared to before. She repeatedly inspected Liam's solar plexus and embarrassingly, the lack of features on his groin. The elder didn't know what to say. My God, you aren't lying. How is that possible? She voiced incredulously, her lips remaining parted. Liam didn't feel the need to explain the details. He already answered once. I don't know. A blind man could see the lie in Liam's words, and the Zenith's lips pursed in anger. I will speak to the others about this. You'll be given a place to stay until then. Liam remained silent. Elder Jane snapped her fingers, and Krell suddenly appeared at Liam's side, through the same shadow teleport thing. Give him a room and make sure he doesn't leave. With those stern words, Elder Jane turned into a shadow that became one with the ground, disappearing at once. Krell scratched the side of his head and gave Liam a strange look. With an reluctant and awkward tone, he questioned. So what's this about a male apparatus? Liam cursed to himself. He was definitely gonna find a way to get it back. /////. Liam was given a small triangular-shaped accommodation to stay in, not too far away from the giant temple. Inside, there wasn't any furniture or even a bed, just enough space for Liam to cultivate, inscribe, forge and train with. Perfect. Truth be told, he was a bit anxious as to what the elders would think about his predicament. Judging by her reaction, though, it wasn't something too worrisome. Both Liam's strength and element was useful for their needs. In the first place, not having to hide his race and using all his strength gave him an exhilarating feeling of freedom. Paired with the fact that he was well hidden from outside eyes, he was satisfied with his current arrangement. Liam sat cross-legged first thing and began to cultivate as time passed. His body was rapidly nearing the upper tier of the third rank, but his core wasn't nearing the liquid stage. The estimated time for each breakthrough towards the higher ranks differed depended on several factors. Generally, for the rank 2 core to advance to the liquid stage, it would roughly take a year or so. However, Liam consumed dozens of pills he reaped from the various rings he stole. From his estimation, it expedited his progress by a few months at most, but Liam's progression speed was slower than normal humans. Probably another 6 months until I advance. Hours passed, and Liam concluded his core and bodily cultivation, expanding his mental sphere next. Sweat covered his figure top to bottom, and his mental energy was halved by then. Liam stopped there, then shifted his focus to the blades in his ring. He carefully took out the inscribed container and took out the blood-drenched blades from them. Liam inspected the weapons. The inscriptions on their surface had completely melted away, but what remained was a dark red material that absorbed his blood. It worked. Chapter 187 Interview. Liam instantly noticed the differences on the blood-drenched weapons. The black, magical beast-made blades had absorbed part of his purified blood, merging the properties between the two materials. Liam didn't waste a second and willed out a droplet of blood to absorb into his mental sphere. In truth, the more complex and higher-ranked item Liam wanted to invent, the more amount of blood he had to absorb. Smaller droplets of blood were too difficult to stuff meanings with, but had more potential as a whole to inscribe with, since efficiency was a large part of Liam's blood weaving. However, it limited the amount of links Liam could make. Larger amounts were the opposite. They allowed for more meanings and links, but had lesser potential. The only problem was, it came with paralyzing pain. For this reason, Liam didn't train to his full capacity with the psionic rune, making sure to keep at least half of his mental energy to inscribe with. 3 hours passed as Liam went through the imbuing stage, imbuing the meanings he conjured onto the droplet, the absorption stage, and finally, the application stage. Liam desperately needed rest, and his mind throbbed every second with pangs of pain. Gritting his teeth, he scribbled away at the weapons with what remained of his strength. After a solid hour, he was done with everything. Liam's blades shimmered with the blood-red writings, the glow of which looked alive, breathing in and out. Having no strength to smile, Liam stored the blades and put his abused head to sleep. Rank 2 upper tier. Still not good enough to break through. //////. After barely an hour or two, Liam woke up. His head didn't hurt as much as before, but he still didn't feel safe inscribing for at least a week. He prioritized stability of his mental sphere first. If I let the droplet cook and pair it with blood-infused magical beast parts, it should be good enough to break through, but I'll have to set aside some time for that project. Still, Liam wasn't too confident making that claim. To forge something in a higher rank required more than a simple increase in material and ink. Liam needed to improve his meanings and further his understanding. In other words, dip his hand into areas other than simple sharpness enhancements. For the next 5 hours, Liam was absorbed in his studies, mainly spell-making and understanding body tempering methods. Each type of technique requires different kinds of meanings. Liam remembered Richard's teachings from the Royal Academy. Body tempering methods often require the inscriber to understand anatomy and bodily composition. The same goes for mental attacks, that require one to repeatedly stress and understand the sea of consciousness. Liam's goal was to make a body tempering method that allowed him to alter and change his form freely, combining both his physical and mental abilities from his human and assurance side. For that, he would begin with expanding his knowledge of spirit beasts, experimenting their ins and outs, alive and dead. Firstly, that required a darkness spirit beast, since Liam already had experience working with them. 2 knocks surfaced on Liam's door. He stored all the notebooks and parchments of paper lying around his space and quickly exited the pyramid. There, Krell quietly waited for him, saying nothing as he gestured to the temple. They've arranged another meeting, all the elders this time. Liam heaved a small breath, stealing his gaze as he prepared to meet 5 zeniths. ////. Liam was ushered into a large hallroom. Instantly, a natural pressure pushed against his mind. 6 pillars made from dark stone held up the ceiling above, and in front were 5 chairs placed beside each other. Sitting upon each one was an elder of the temple. Krell was kind enough to give Liam information about each elder. He felt about Liam not having a male member, mistaking him to be a young man forced to castrate himself. The first was Elder Jane, on the far left chair. She was in charge of the mortal-ranked cultivators within the temple, and was pensively silent. This is the boy, the female elder wearing a sleeveless robe and a black mask asked in a derisive tone. Her mental waves were far less gentle compared to Jane's. I expected one of our own, at the very least. The one who spoke was Elder Orisa, a formation master that managed to construct the isolation chamber surrounding the underground basement. Her skin was tanned, but covered with dark blue tattoos. Sitting in the middle was Elder Virium, the only one who didn't bother wearing a mask, revealing his skinny, pale face, enough that his cheekbones were poking through. His black hair was long, with a few shades of gray here and there. Despite that, he was still the strongest and oldest elder from amongst the 5, his blue eyes piercing through Liam's own. What exactly am I looking at here? He asked with a confused face. Not even he, despite his long age and expertise, could understand. Can we pick him apart and find out? An excited, childish voice sounded next to Virium's, belonging to a petite woman jumping in her chair. I want to pick him apart so badly. Had her zenith aura not been there, Liam would have confused Elder Aki for a sassy young child. She was even shorter than Liam was. The ornate black mask covered her face, leaving only her wild, dark red hair visible from behind her. Obviously not, moron. We've finally found one that fits the criteria, Elder Jax denied with a firm tone. His stature was slim and lacked muscle, but his voice was aged and knowledgeable. If he's worthy of it, of course. Jax was the remaining male elder, and also an inscription master. Liam remained silent all throughout, silently suffering through the 5 different mental waves that had little regard for his safety. Their gazes pierced into Liam's soul. He felt like cornered prey, but he didn't dare show weakness. "Tell us, boy. Why do you want to join our temple?" Darius questioned sharply. Liam inwardly cursed. Was he really being interviewed? Chapter 188 Masterpiece. Liam questioned whether or not his answers would affect his chances of joining the group. The Zeniths could definitely tell if he lied or not, but being truthful worked against him. In reality, Liam's intention for joining was just to reap the benefits that came with the Temple of Shadow. He wanted to keep away from the public view and steadily grow his strength. Even sacrificing plentiful resources that other sects might provide in exchange for safety. He didn't care about their goals and missions of vengeance. Unless, of course, his own revenge against the Royce family, which he wholeheartedly intended to carry out. In the end, truth was the only option. Something told him an old man like Virium valued honesty over strength, and a low-ranking foreigner lying to his face would just be disrespectful. "I have secrets I'd rather die than speak of. I don't have any grudge against the Imperialists or the Dual Empire, but that doesn't mean I can't help you in your cause." Liam's words were firm, and the Zeniths read between the lines. He wasn't going to reveal any more than he already did. "Oh? What can you help us with, child?" said Elder Orisa, her derisive tone filled with mockery. Liam suppressed a scowl. "I can regularly forge rank 2 blades through magical beasts and spirit beasts. I'm also proficient in inscriptions relating to blood, specifically sharpness enhancements." Silence. Elder Orisa was shocked. She could tell Liam was telling the truth. Pleasantly surprised, Elder Jane shot Orisa and the rest a smirk from the side, then looked towards Liam with an approving gaze behind the mask. "He has natural talent and doesn't fear 5 Zeniths pressuring him. We'd be foolish not to let him in with so much potential," Jane mentioned. "Not to mention, the boy is already a rank 2 magus close to a rank 4 body, and he's already a rank 2 cultivator." Another contemplative silence ensued. Everyone had their own way of digesting that information. Elder Virium kept quiet with his powerful gaze still on Liam. Orisa was the same, except she really questioned the validity of Liam's claim. Even the childish Elder Aki grew serious, her sassy demeanors disappearing. Having an outsider enter their temple was against the established rules, but Liam's abilities were too amazing for them not to consider. Even if he was from another race. Although Liam didn't really understand how Zeniths thought, he was pretty sure Jax and Jane already accepted him. Orisa turned into a shadow that sunk into the ground, then reformed in front of Liam in the blink of an eye. "Show me the blades you've made." Liam didn't argue and took out a rank 2 lower-tier pair of blades, handing them to her. He purposely didn't give her the upper-tier blades he made earlier. After all, he didn't want to oversell himself and become a slave to the temple, repeatedly forging and inscribing weapons for them to use. Orisa examined the blades with keen eyes, rubbing the edges with the tips of her slender fingers. It formed a tiny wound that healed not a second after, barely drawing any blood. Even a rank 2 item barely cuts through a rank 4 body. "Your name?" she asked abruptly, her gaze still on the blade. Liam contemplated whether or not using his real name mattered. It really didn't, and he was pretty sure they could tell his lies. "Liam." Orisa gave him a terse nod and handed him the blade. "I approve," she said, turning into a shadow and reappearing back in her chair as though she never left. "I don't care about a mortal's secrets. If he's able to make weapons like that for the lower-ranked acolytes to use, I don't see a problem with him joining. Aki's forging methods require viscera metal, which takes time to make, and the disciples can't even wield them." With her words, Orisa raised her hand. "So she's a forge master?" Liam wondered as he sneaked a glance at the childlike elder. Elder Jane raised her hand as well, shortly followed by Jax. Aki was a bit more reserved, but eventually raised her hand. "You better hold your own weight, or I'll pick you apart myself. Nobody will give you free techniques," she added with her childlike voice. After a silence that was much longer than it seemed, Darius spoke. It is decided. You'll become an acolyte first. You won't be given special treatment, but that could change if you hold any talent with the shadows. We will put our lives on the line for your protection, and we expect you to do the same for the temple. After a short pause, Liam gave a firm nod in response. With a lower voice, meant for the elders but not limited to them, Darius added. I will inform the patriarch of the decision. Jackson, you can personally show him the attunement procedure. We can't let the others make any mistake with him. Liam remained quiet as the Zeniths exchanged nods with one another. He was relieved and worried at the same time. In the next moment, 3 of the 5 sitting in the hallroom turned into shadows that scattered in different directions. Jane lingered. With you, I'm sure we can restore the temple to its former glory. The elder gave Liam a complicated smile before leaving herself. With that, only Elder Jax remained. Saying nothing, the elder took off his mask and robe a moment later, revealing his pale and lean body which was riddled with intricate, black tattoos covering his skin. His piercing, deep-set blue eyes held a dark light in them, but flickered with brilliance and maturity. Short blue hair covered his head, and a sharp scar ran across the bridge of his nose. Elder Jax smiled lightly. As the name of our temple suggests, we bring out the hidden power of shadows, he said, running his hand across the tattoos on his chest. Using a body inscription method developed by the patriarch. Unfortunately for us, we're not of the darkness element, and we cannot bring out its true potential. Stretching out his arms, the tattoos on his body flickered black and shrouded his entire figure, leaving only his eyes visible. The danger radiating from him intensified enough to make Liam's instincts scream. But you. A dangerous smile formed on Jax's thin lips, his voice deeper and muffled. You will be my greatest masterpiece. Chapter 189 Respect. Shocked and amazed at the same time, Liam's eyes widened as the elder's shadow wrapped around him and strengthened his aura. The room itself darkened by a noticeable amount as Jax's body absorbed the light. In a split second, Jax's form disappeared with a blink, reappearing behind Liam. Frowning, Liam's body reflexively moved on its own, jolting around and taking a wide jump back. However, Jax disappeared again, standing vertically on the ceiling and defying the laws of gravity. For the final time, the elder merged with the room, then reformed in front of Liam. This is nothing. My level with this art is laughable considering how long I practiced in it. A moment later, the black coating regressed and gathered on Jax's right arm. Even without the king's eye supporting his vision, Liam could see just how devastating that arm would be if it struck something. Even Liam's complete Ashura form wouldn't survive. Before he could use it, though, the elder's shadow sucked back into the tattoos on his skin and reverted to the static blue color. His complexion visibly paled after that demonstration, with cold sweat dripping down his face. Art of the 10,000 Shadows, that's the name of this body inscription method, Jax said as he wore his robe and cleared his throat. The ink for the tattoos are made through the ichor of a special plant called the dark star. They're rare and delicate, only growing under specific conditions and have certain side effects. The inscriptions help you absorb the essence of shadows and strengthen your body with it. The tattoos work as a conduit, a medium, to give you control over it. As you can tell, contrasting elements have limits. The elder exited the hall and Liam naturally followed. Only darkness users can bring out its true potential. Shadows are a byproduct of it, after all. You may ask, Jax granted, seeing the eager look in Liam's eyes. Liam had several questions, but one of them was much more important than the rest. What side effects? The elder paused for a moment, then continued. The plant corrupts the mind. It brings out cruelty and intensifies negative emotions. Some even start to hallucinate and go insane. It's why we were exiled. There was anger and solemnity in the elder's words. Liam saw how the higher-ranking acolytes had more tattoos compared to those below them. He couldn't imagine how many people lost their minds due to pushing themselves over the limit. Liam's mental resilience was way above average. But if even a Zenith didn't underestimate the Dark Star's corruption, neither did he. Transforming into an Ashura had a similar effect, but it was still temporary, disappearing after Liam reverted back to a human. Enough minor details. There's currently not enough material for the treatment to begin, but I'll have to run some tests to see what your limits are. As he said that, the pair arrived at a small room. A torture room, judging by the unsettling tools differing in sharpness and shape laying around the space. In the center was a black metal table, fixed with tight chains and thick braces meant to hold the victim still no matter what. Liam heaved a slight sigh and quietly made his way on the chair, strapping himself in. The material it was made out of wasn't normal, as even his rank 3 body didn't cause it to bend. Elder Jax looked at him approvingly. I wonder what kind of life this young man lived until now, the elder thought before stealing his gaze. / 3 torturous hours passed. Liam's figure was covered with blood and bits of flesh. Parts of him were bent in unnatural directions, and his breathing was ragged and cold. The beginning tortures didn't faze him at all. They were mild and consisted of a few cuts here and there, which Liam's regeneration took care of not long after. Elder Jax ramped up in intensity once he realized Liam's tolerance for pain was much higher than normal. Liam had spiked needles lodged in between his limbs, his nails pulled, chunks of his tongue cut and bits of his human organs pierced. Other than panting heavily and grunting loudly now and again, Liam kept quiet and didn't complain. Of course, the elder wouldn't inflict the pain without having a way to heal it back to normal. He simply gave Liam a strong pill to swallow and the torture session started once more. As it continued, Jax became more and more amazed. How could a mortal ranked cultivator have so much tolerance for pain? It was out of this world. Even as he cracked Liam's bones and shattered his fingers, all Liam did was tense his body and suppress his shouts. Jax moved to mental torture. He roughened up Liam's sea of consciousness as much as he could without directly killing him. Despite that, Liam gritted his teeth and resisted the urge to use thicken or corrosive mind. Eventually, the spare drugs that Jax had ran out, and the torture session had to be stopped. The elder had to admit that even he didn't have that sort of endurance and resolve as a mortal cultivator. Although the struggle tribulation was way more difficult compared to regular torture, Liam was still not at that stage. Not to mention, Jax was more than 150 years old. You have my respect, said the elder with a slight smile, unstrapping Liam from the table and washing away the blood from his body using a soft stream of water. I'll prioritize finding the dark stars. Your mental and physical fortitude is just excellent for the 10,000 shadows. I'm even excited to apply the inscriptions on you. Liam managed a respectful gesture, the same Krell did, despite all his cells screaming in pain. Thank you, Elder Jax. Rest, now. It will probably take a month or 2 to find enough materials for the process, so you can steadily raise your strength until then. Chapter 190 Hunt. Liam exited the torture chamber, eyes drooping and breathing weak, then made his way through a series of corridors to leave the pyramid. As soon as he left the giant temple, Zeth, Krell, and more faces that he couldn't recognize were standing there. 3 women and 1 man that were the same level of strength as Krell, with lower-ranked acolytes huddled behind them. Before they could strike up a conversation, Liam shook his head with a scowl. They watched as he moved past them and headed towards his private pyramid, fully intent to sleep away the rest of the day. How many hours did he stay inside the despair room? Zeth spoke with wide eyes, and the others had the same looks on their faces. They all had experienced the despair room. Everyone has to in order to get their shadow tattoos. Elder Jax had a knack for torturing and testing the limits of the human body and mind. Zeth himself lasted 30 minutes before crying for his mother and passing out. Thankfully, the elder was kind enough to stop the torture if they lost consciousness. Out of all the squadron leaders, Krell had lasted the longest, 2.5 hours by the skin of his teeth. He's not normal, said Krell as he watched Liam's back grow distant, respect evident in his dark eyes. We'll see a few changes around here with his presence. / Liam woke up after sleeping for who knows how long. His headache was significantly lesser than before, but the remnants of the torture still lingered in his mind and body. Putting on his robe, Liam took out a spirit beast corpse and began wolfing it down raw. Some of his energy returned, but eating 2 more spirit beasts managed to bring him back to a stable condition. Eating cultivators is way more beneficial for my body instead of spirit beasts. Just one would have sufficed to bring me back to peak condition. The problem was, Liam didn't have any more bodies remaining to devour. He needed to restock soon, but staying underground wouldn't accomplish anything. Come to think of it, I still haven't explored the underground and its establishments. I'm supposed to meet Krell and receive my duties as an acolyte as well, Liam thought with a grimace as he activated the shadow fire cultivation technique. As he was in thought, half an hour passed, and he subconsciously moved to the psionic rune. The 10,000 shadows are amazing to say the least. I've gained so many abilities during the past 2 years that nobody can come close to the same prowess as me. The King's Eye, the Ashura body, chaos, or primordial essence, blood manipulation, shadow clone and the vast arsenal of spells in his possession gave Liam unbridled potential. Adding a body inscription method would bring him to a new realm of power entirely. A broad grin formed on Liam's face. Finally, he concluded his training with the rune. Before he left, Liam took out the inscribed preservation container and filled it with his blood. Then, he placed 2 spare blades in them that he didn't imbue with a beast will. He didn't really plan on making another pair of blades so soon, since it would completely take him out of commission, but being prepared and making use of his time didn't hurt. I should reabsorb the beast wills during my free time. It should help speed up my expansion again. With that, Liam left the pyramid, only to see Krell waiting for him outside with a friendly smile. You're finally out. Liam raised a brow at how friendlier Krell was compared to before. Come, I'll give you a tour of the underground. You'd be happy to know there's a better place for you to live in, nearer to the temple, Krell said as he and Liam walked side by side through the streets. Krell was a squadron leader. Usually, no one would dare walk in front or beside him except those of a similar or stronger rank. Still, the rank 3 cultivator didn't take any offense as Liam did exactly that. Your duties aren't that special. The temple is laying low as of now, so the missions vary from bringing back special resources to, very rarely, quietly assassinating someone. Our goal is to silently expand our territories and gain more control over the island. Liam nodded in understanding. It would be weird if a clan specialized in shadows weren't good at assassination. That goal is a bit difficult considering how many sects share this place with the ravenous leash dogs. They also use investigative spirit beasts to search for traces of our presence, Krell cursed angrily. Liam hummed to himself in response, silently taking in the knowledge. As the pair continued, they passed by a rowdy area where no housing pyramids were visible. Instead, there were flat fields that consisted of a forgery, a small-sized tavern, and other spots where the members could entertain themselves. Liam was confused as to why the temple allowed for such areas, but a realization made him chuckle wryly under his breath. Normal people naturally require socialization. Without those facilities, Liam was sure that the members of the temple would slowly become deranged, only intensified by the corruption effects of the Dark Star. Although acolytes are the lowest rank of the temple, you're already a rank 2 cultivator. You'll be given lodging suited for one. Oh, and the rankings for the clan go from acolyte, disciple, shadow, and finally, elder. Eventually, Liam and Krell arrived at what looked like a circular space with small-sized pyramids covering its surface, paved with small walkways for people to pass through. The cultivators there were much stronger compared to those on the outside. A few middle-aged men among them even had rank 2 mental spheres and rank 3 bodies, many of them already in the liquid stage. Krell pointed towards a specific pyramid. That's yours, he said, giving Liam a jet-black token. And that's the key. With that, the pair continued forward. Becoming a rank 3 cultivator gives you the authority to command a squadron. If a group assignment calls for it, I might even lead you into a hunt or battle. Krell puffed his chest as he said the last sentence. What do you guys hunt? Liam asked. Krell smirked proudly. Rank 4 spirit beasts. Chapter 191 Stock. Liam's eyes widened at Krell's statement. You can do that? Krell nodded casually. Only as a group. Rarely do we hunt, and it's out of necessity. The rank 4 parts provide a steady source of income for the biggest hideout of the temple. It's a black market proxy through which we receive resources and techniques from the outside, otherwise we would have died out a long time ago. Liam was immediately interested. Elder Aki used something called Visirum metal, so there wouldn't be any reason for them to withhold the materials. Unlucky. Rank 4 magical beast parts were incredibly valuable, and coveted by inscription masters, alchemists, and forge masters alike. Even in the academy, he didn't have the chance to forge or practice with them. That privilege was strictly available to Year 3 students. Can I come too? Liam asked. I'm sure I won't weigh down your group. Liam wanted to see how his abilities fared against rank 4 beasts. At the very least, a rank 4 center of power was required to fight a zenith-ranked magical beast on even grounds. However, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Liam had several advantages. Krell chuckled amusingly. Those hunts are only done between the squadron leaders, but if an elder vouches for you, I'm sure you can break that rule. Liam nodded, inwardly happy. Elder Jax gave him his respect. That had to be worth something. Krell showed him a few more places after that. An armory selling shabby armor and weapons, barely at the peak of rank 1, and techniques that weren't really usable for Liam's standards, in addition to a dueling arena and a pill store. It turned out, the temple worked with the same merit point system as the academy and every other work-based organization. The system ensured the acolytes and disciples worked hard to achieve a higher status within the underground. Fortunately, the pills would greatly help Liam's progress. They were a collection of the items the temple stole from minor sects above ground. Similar to the hunts for rank 4 beasts, small, mid or large-scale raids like those happened only with the high-ranking members, the shadows and stronger disciples, and it only occurred when any suspicion of them was minimal. What are the elders doing right now? Liam asked as his gaze swept the surroundings. I don't see why they can't personally hunt the rank 4 magical beasts or take care of the lower-ranking clans above. Shaking his head, Krell grew stern. They're in charge of much more important matters. Besides, if a mysterious zenith came and decimated a sect, it would attract attention from the mainlands. Krell didn't add more, leaving Liam to guess as to what those matters were. They're probably figuring out ways to strengthen themselves until the patriarchs return from seclusion. The pressure from Elder Jane's Hall was enough to shatter my mental sphere if I didn't use thicken. Eventually, Liam and Krell arrived at a large base with inscribed mission boards all over them, filled with groups of acolytes and disciples going through the missions. In the middle was a large table set with an ethereal black map of the entire island. Amazed momentarily, Liam briefly sifted through the missions and the rewards given upon completion. Most of them were resource-gathering quests, but here and there, an assassination mission with stern requirements were available. With his level and expertise, they were relatively easy to do. That's everything. Oh, and before I forget, Krell fumbled around with his ring and took out a parchment paper which he handed to Liam. You've been tasked with making 3 short swords around the 2nd rank by the end of this month. They don't have to be inscribed, but if they are, you'll be rewarded greater. Liam let out a grunt in response. The elders already wanted to make use of him, but he expected just as much. He took a look at the parchment, which had a crude drawing of the required short swords and the merit rewards it came with. Since Liam's specialization was with darkness spirit beasts, they gave him more leeway with the weapons rankings. At least it gives me more merits compared to most missions they offer. They were considerate enough not to force me to inscribe for them. Though, finding the spirit beast still depended on him. Liam stored the parchment and gave Krell an understanding nod. Good luck. Before leaving, Krell gave Liam the date for the next hunt, 2.5 weeks. I'd better prepare until that time. I'll ask Elder Jax for permission a few days before the hunt. Liam shifted his gaze to the missions again. The first thing Liam wanted to do was get the tasks over and done with. I'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I can find the spirit beasts and use them to make the 3 short swords. though, he wasn't sure if spirit beasts functioned the same way as magical beasts did with the primordial forging method. Shifting through the various missions, Liam settled on one and accepted it. It simply required him to bring back 3 rank 3 spirit beasts of any element or type, which fit like a glove for his needs. Scanning the ethereal map in the center of the room, Liam memorized the layout and arduously made his way out of the underground. Damn it, this walk is too long. The shadow users have it easy when they can just blend into the ground and teleport large distances. When he finally arrived at the crevice, Liam grimaced as he saw the same shadow formation that radiated danger. Wait, does my token work too? Liam gripped his token by the edges and slowly slid it over to the mass of shadows. As the token made contact, the formation momentarily dissipated. Liam instantly left through the narrow gorge and ran towards the wilderness, using vanishing steps and fleeting foot to increase his speed. Higher-ranked spirit beasts weren't that rare where the temple's main base was, so Liam didn't have to walk far. I should stock up on human bodies while I'm at it. Chapter 192 Hideout. Liam didn't think the temple would be so lax with the fact that he casually ate human beings. Who was to say the acolytes were safe from his savage cravings? Coupled with how he was a foreigner with a mysterious background and new to Ucladd, letting out that secret was bound to stir trouble for him. The temple may hate the current governors of Ucladd, but they still love the people and its lands. That was the exact reason why the temple wanted revenge. Too many lives were lost during the imperialists' and dual empires' attacks, and the unforgiven shadow was out for blood. As long as I don't overeat and target rogue criminals, the secret should be safe, but these petty thieves and murderers aren't enough to fully nourish my body. Liam shrugged. Beggars couldn't be choosers. Maybe once they trust me enough, I can request the bodies of lesser-ranked cultivators to eat. Their enemies, of course. Pulling himself out of his musings, Liam finally arrived at a rank 3 spirit beast den. It was a group of spiked fur hounds in the 3rd rank. Like their name suggested, their tufts of bone-white hair were spiked and razor-sharp. They looked like a mix of porcupine and wolf, with their growls subtly vibrating the air around them, laying around a patch of green shrubbery surrounded by thick plants. The entire place smelled like piss. At this point, Liam took just a minute to analyze the swiftest way to exterminate the pack of beasts. Although the top side of the wolves were armored with the spikes, their maws and undersides were left unprotected. Liam hid his presence the best he could. Although his smell was maskable to cultivators of a lower or similar rank, magical beasts and spirit beasts had powerful senses of smell. Liam unsheathed his blades and decided to take the wolves by surprise. Slowly, Liam crouched and cocked his knees. As darkness tightened against the soles of his feet, Liam let go and launched himself 10 meters in the air. Whoosh! As he fluttered over the wolves like a kite, 8 needles appeared in between each of Liam's fingers. In one swift motion, he flicked the needles towards the weak maws of each wolf, raining down a barrage of death. As the needles pierced through the jaws of the beasts and exploded, Liam lithely landed in the center of the pack, his blade finding its mark on the group's alpha. Specifically, cleaving its maw in one instantaneous slash with his katana. So sharp, Liam thought as he inspected the upper-tier rank 2 blade. It severed through a rank 3 spirit beast's body like butter. It didn't really matter if Liam cut the beast's jaw off. He would make the weapons from their hardened fur anyways. Low-pitched whimpers rang out from the other beasts as dark smoke filled the area. Their mouths were pierced and corroded with darkness, taking away their ability to roar. Enraged, the wolves turned around and did their best to aim their backs at Liam. As wafer-thin furs shot through the air, Liam already began blurring, activating the first forms of his martial art and severing the wounded muzzles of the beasts. A few spikes smashed against his body, but barely pierced through obsidian skin. In less than 10 minutes, Liam cleared a pack of rank 3 spirit beasts. Storing them in his ring, Liam continued moving forward. Forward slash. Another hour passed, and Liam was done with gathering the necessary materials to forge with. It should be enough to make 3 short swords or more. I'll try to look for spirit beasts of the darkness element as well. Liam felt his hunger growing stronger. I'll take care of this first. After memorizing the map, Liam could instantly spot the ghetto regions of Alali. Little nooks and crannies that were suitable for fugitives and wanted individuals to hide in without attracting attention. Liam would know where to look. After all, he slept more on the floors of random caves and dungeons than a soft bed. It didn't take long for Liam to find a gushing waterfall that led to a ravine downstream. Water-type spirit beasts and magical beasts inhabited the area, but Liam saw how their numbers dwindled near the waterfall. Liam smiled. Silently, he began climbing the rocky edges that led horizontally to the large waterfall, intent on making his way to the center. The stream of cold water surged over his body, drenching his lengthy hair and shredded clothes. As he reached for another handhold, Liam's hand went through the wall. There it is. Smiling, Liam swung his body through the veil of water and landed on solid ground, rolling as he steadied his footing. Right ahead were a series of large tents that were covered by a steep concave, lit by the orbs of natural light, a hideout with enough space to fit a total of 100 people. Voices and laughter entered his ears. Ragged-robed martial artists walked this way and that way, but nobody had seen him enter. From what Liam heard, the group had just attacked a small-sized village and gotten away with it. Most of the men were drunk out of their minds and were boasting of their grand accomplishment. 26 cultivators, Liam thought with a broad grin as his mental waves spread through the air. Their strongest isn't even a rank 2 magus. They have women as hostages as well. Slowly, Liam's body split with 3 states of darkness and formed an identical clone. There was too much to clear on his own, and he reckoned it was good practice for his control over the shadow clone. Liam gave his body double a pair of blades and got to work, activating his dark wraith body and increasing his speed as he ran. A group of men sitting around a large table, guffawing with drinks in their hands, saw a blurry, smoky, jet-black figure blink past them with a gust of wind. A moment later, their heads flew in the air dramatically with a spurt of blood before finding space in Liam's rings. Chapter 193 Smile. Slowly, the laughter echoing throughout the concave was dwindling in volume. In truth, the volume didn't change, just that the people lessened in number. In the span of 20 minutes, Liam had killed over 32 men and women that died without knowing how or why. There wasn't any need for him to use his darkness. His element would only erase their flesh and blood, leaving no trace whatsoever and lessening his provisions. Liam limited himself to using a spell only when one of them was going to shout for help. The shadow clone was doing well on its own. Liam had to keep it close to him as he moved further in, deliberately slowing himself down so he didn't lose control over it. The clone's blade wasn't as sharp as Liam's, but it was enough to kill those with rank 1 bodies. Eventually, the strange silence was noticed by the stronger cultivators who exited their tents, half-naked and confused. As their horrified eyes swept through their base, the once lively hideout was now covered with streaks of blood but no bodies. Except 2 figures, one of which was pure black with a blank expression, and the other radiating pure danger, making a beeline straight towards the group. Before they could even take out their weapons, Liam used the first form of his martial art and decapitated the group of 4 in one slash, storing their bodies just as fast. Liam heaved a sigh, cold sweat dripping from his pale face. Using spell after spell and controlling the shadow clone stressed his mind by a lot. That should be everyone. Only the hostages are left. Liam's hard gaze shifted to the tent that the 4 leaders came out of. He entered inside, and a group of women, covered with bruises and wearing tattered clothing, looked at him with fear in their eyes. They trembled at Liam's blood-covered figure, holding each other for support. "Will you let us live?" one of them managed to blurt out. Liam remained silent. Regular humans would barely provide him any nourishment. Their life force was incredibly weak since they never absorbed aura in their lives. But they saw my abilities. Liam said nothing and smiled warmly in response, but the grip on his blade subtly tightened. Giving them a painless death was the least he could do. /////. Since the hideout was an effective cover, Liam simply chose to devour all the bodies there. There were a total of 51 bodies. Only 26 of them were fully cultivators, the rest had rank 1 or rank 2 bodies with varying cores, minus the human hostages. Liam semi-transformed his teeth and began wolfing away at the human flesh, careful not to lose himself in the process. With each limb, organ, and heart devoured, his chaos pearl, blood, body, and core expanded and strengthened. It took him 4 hours to devour all of the bodies. Granted, he took pauses and waited for most of the bodies to digest in order not to lose himself, spending those breaks in cultivation. As Liam's stomach ingested the last corpse, his body experienced a change. It entered the upper tier of rank 3. He could feel a noticeable change in his physical strength. Liam's physique didn't change much. He was still lean but a tiny bit more muscular. I'll only see a major change once I enter the 4th rank. Until then, I'll have to eat, cultivate, and use pills to quicken the process. The average age for a rank 4 body was about 25 to 26 years of age, not considering the usage of elixirs and pills. Liam was a few months away from becoming 15. He had cut so many corners due to his favorable circumstances and unorthodox techniques, giving him an unbelievable edge. The gap between the upper tier and the 4th rank is massive. Unless I work hard enough, it might even take me a full year to advance. Liam cleaned away any traces of his stay, including the blood from those he killed. He mentally took note of the waterfall. It was well hidden. Enough for him to consume other humans in privacy. I've done enough. It's time to return. With that, Liam made his way back to the temple. /////. Squeezing through the tight crevice and completing the boring run back inside, Liam finally arrived in the underground. The first thing he did was head to the mission hall and report the mission completed. Receiving his merits, he went to the pill store next. Although the merits themselves were not enough to buy items that significantly bolstered his progress, they were still buyable through aura stones. A stern, scar-faced lady helped direct the surrounding acolytes on what pill to buy. There was a large inscribed board built atop a pillar in the center, fixed with all the names, ranks and uses of the pills available. Liam briefly sifted through them. Raven Tongue Potion, Flame Spider Pill, Bone Boiling Elixir. The first one helps with the prolonging of mental energy, the other with the protection of the core, and the third softens the bones for faster cultivation. In truth, the Shadow Fire cultivation technique was much deadlier compared to other methods of expansion. If used for long periods of time, the corroding effect would potentially remain permanent, maiming the organ. For that exact reason, Liam used it for a total of 30 minutes every day, even though he could use it for far longer. Liam bought all 3 items, costing him a total of 5,000 aura stones, then made his way back to his new accommodation. Some female acolytes his age and older looked at him with blushes, to which he frowned and glared in response. Why did that make them blush even more? Liam scowled, forgetting the corruption effects given by the dark star. Shaking his head, he entered his accommodation and made sure to lock the door. The aura density in his home was far better than before, raising his chances of entering the liquid stage of the core before the 1-year mark. Without delay, he prepared for the coming months. Chapter 194 Stages. The visionary sect within the mainlands was special one. Unlike other renowned clans that lived within the mainlands, venerated for their destructive and amazing martial arts, spells and techniques, the visionary sect didn't even fight. They were a small-sized sect consisting only of oracles. This made them incredibly valuable to the 7 clans that governed Alali, giving them insight on any major event of their country or, rarely, the world. It helped that the visionary sect was neutral with all of the clans, and their services were available for all to use. For a price, of course. Exactly 5 months ago, the female Zenith patriarch of the visionary clan, Raigenshur, had a vision before succumbing to a coma. She opened her eyes to a world of pure light. Star-like adornments flickered endlessly from above. Radiance was endless, the source of which was a giant, majestic, thick tree in the center that connected the sky and ground together like a sturdy pillar. Everything was tranquil. Then a bud of darkness grew in the depths of the earth. It was tiny at first, barely noticeable and insignificant. But then it blossomed into a thorny, cruel tree, its roots sprawling from the ground and spreading into the light around it. It consumed the light, starting with the earth. Like a cancer, it grew and grew, its sinister aura making its way to the majestic tree. Rai-Jen had to pull herself out of the vision. Every second she spent watching and observing was pressure that tightened around her mind, pressure that would burst as soon as she opened her eyes. But she continued watching. She had to see where it led. More buds of darkness grew around the majestic pillar, becoming thorny trees, which eventually began merging towards the center. Just as the two forces of light and dark were to meet, Rai-Jen was forcefully yanked away from the dream. Countless cracks surfaced on her rank 4 sea of consciousness, making her grimace and cough a mouthful of blood. She was in a small room filled with runes and energies, circulating around her mental sphere and body. The floor itself was riddled with arrays, yet none of them seemed to lessen the damage on her centers of power. Rai-Jen cursed weakly. Twice she had a vision that made her knees weak. The first was many years ago, but it was brief and extremely vague, like the rapid flashing of horrid images she half remembered. Has the Temple of Shadow returned? She whispered under her shivering breath, devoid of strength to lift her arms. Her eyes drooped as her body regressed into a malnourished state. I must inform the clans. That was Rai-Jen's last thought as her vision grew dark, and her consciousness faded to black. /////. Liam finished up forging the 3 short swords for the temple. Only one of them was rank 2, with the other 2 blades at the low and high ends of the upper tier of rank 1. There wasn't much he could do there, and it wasn't really his fault. Spirit beasts functioned the same in his mental sphere as their counterpart, which was a relief to say the least. Beasts of varying elements had body parts that differed in property, and Liam's expertise rested with darkness elementals. It should be good enough for their standards. Liam didn't really feel the need to inscribe them. The back-to-back forgings took a full day away from his schedule, and the inscriptions would take another week. He stored the weapons for later and began to consume the pills he bought the day earlier. A week quickly passed. Liam's schedule was jam-packed. Between studying spirit beasts, learning how to make a spell, memorizing blood arts and cultivating, Liam couldn't afford to waste a second. Making a spell, body tempering method or any technique in general had its own stages. The first was the visualization/conceptualization stage. This was the most important and simultaneously difficult part of making a spell. If Liam wanted to make a body tempering method that combined both of his forms, he would have to incorporate his assurance strength and physicality with his human intellect and mental energy. To do that, Liam would have to understand his assurance state down to the very nerve, and the connections it had to his human side when he transformed. Honestly speaking, Liam didn't think that was possible for his current level of strength. Techniques that complicated can't be made with a rank 2 sea of consciousness. I'm not even sure a rank 3 mental sphere can make that possible. But if the King's Eye improves, I can get a better understanding of the spells I already have. This wasn't considering the amount of issues something like that entailed. It definitely wasn't safe, nor was it going to be painless. After that was the testing/polishing stage. Hypothetically, if Liam were to inscribe that body tempering method, there was no chance whatsoever it was going to work on the first try. Any spell or technique was the same. Even back on Earth, things had to be tested out countless times before being approved. Liam's technique had to be rigorously tested and polished before he could even think of cultivating it. How I can test something of this caliber is beyond me, though. Only after he could pluck out the countless issues with the technique was when Liam could move to the last stage. The last and final phase was the utilization stage, which simply meant that the technique could be used without issue, and only required Liam to iron out and perfect it. Liam lowered his sights and chose to work on a simple spell for his chaos instead. However, he finally figured out part of the blood arts. After a solid 2 weeks had passed, Liam grew confident enough to change some of the links connected to the rank 2 blood arts. Sitting cross-legged and bare, the tips of Liam's fingers had a blood-red tattoo on them, running from the tip to the base. Tensing his slender fingers, wafer-thin strings of blood shot out from the tip and flew across the room. Liam smiled broadly. It worked. Only, they lacked any power or tensile strength, weightlessly landing on the ground like confetti and melting back to liquid. Chapter 195 Generosity. Despite that failure of an attack, Liam kept his smile, just less wider than before. Over the course of 2 weeks of working himself down to the bone, he was confident enough in tweaking the vampiric writings of Nivea's blood arts. Before that, he made absolutely sure to heavily practice the same meanings on his own, just to gain a steady hand. To start with, he isolated the writings that were specific only to vampires. The art worked just fine for him without those parts. Making a few minor adjustments on the links, Liam finally managed to attune the technique to his body. The only problem is how weak it became. To make it stronger, I'll have to add my own meanings. Only when I fully master the string arts, I'll move on to the blooders. Before Liam could throw himself back into his studies and cultivation, his jade began blinking. Is 1 month already over? I hope you are well, my liege. Jargon's deep voice rang out from the other side as Liam answered the communication device. Over the course of 5 to 6 months, Jargon had already become an inner disciple of the Gushing River sect, and he had advanced to the liquid stage of rank 2. His martial arts had grown to a decent level, enough to catch his elder's attention. Not all blood troop members had reached similar heights, but they were doing well in their own regard. Even the regular workers had made thriving businesses, while those who became disciples were steadily growing their strength. I'll start with the most important news, said Jargon. Liam appreciated that about the man. How he cut straight in and wasted no time. There was recently a royal envoy from Ikoria spotted heading towards the mainlands. Liam snorted derisively. Took them long enough. Thankfully, Liam had already sorted out his circumstances with the temple. If the 7 clans couldn't find the temple for centuries, neither could the royals. Still, Liam decided to cut back on leaving the underground. Other than that, rumors say the patriarch of the visionary clan had entered a coma after her latest vision. Liam shrugged at that bit of news, albeit he was intrigued at what exactly could do that to a zenith. His experience with oracles made him dislike the profession. Liam wished for the same thing to befall her followers. After giving Liam the rest of the news, he quickly hung up. The abrupt arrival of the royal and the oracle's coma had stirred up superstitious rumors. Are they connected somehow? Liam shrugged. It didn't concern him too much. /////. After a few more days of cultivation and studies, the day for hunting a rank 4 magical beast finally arrived. Liam had left towards the temple early morning after lightly training his centers of power. He made sure to rest well the night before. His opponent was going to be a rank 4 magical beast. He wasn't taking any chances. Although the temple wasn't sternly guarded, Liam had to go to the higher-ranking shadows if he wanted to meet with the elders. He entered a more exclusive-looking area consisting of larger versions of his pyramid. There were only 15 or so buildings there, but the density of aura there was thick. Liam met with Krell at his large pyramid first. The man's expression was steeled with a battle-ready aura. After all, a zenith was a zenith. Human or beast, they were all monsters. Elder Jax has already given you permission, Krell said as he noticed Liam creeping up behind him, gesturing him to enter his house. I knew you'd ask him, so I went ahead and saved you the time. Oh, and the materials for your tattoos are halfway done. Liam gave Krell a thankful nod as he entered the space, not bothering to look at the decorations or furniture. I hope you don't mind me using your space, Senior. Your generosity is appreciated. Instantly, Liam sat cross-legged to absorb aura into his bones. The higher-ranking shadows were going to gather shortly, and he had a few minutes to cultivate. Krell was shocked at Liam's lack of hesitation. Merely a wink and the kid was already on the floor. Shaking his head and chuckling under his breath, Krell got ready himself. It wasn't long before Liam sensed a large group of people approaching the building. Krell left the room and Liam followed him outside, where 5 people were waiting for them. From left to right, Maeve, Ruth, Iris, Aiden and Oro, Krell told Liam their names as they approached, before whispering the last part. Don't focus on their words too much. They'll make you go crazy if you do. Liam raised his brows. Is this the kid? A tall woman with raven black hair and large dark eyes asked. She tilted her head curiously. He's not what I had in mind. I expected someone uglier. Lucky bastard is what he is, another woman cursed with a frown. Her hooded eyes were dark red and her wild hair a similar shade. She was the tallest from the group. An Icorian of all people receiving darkness just pisses me off. Ruth. Don't curse the boy, he's also an acolyte, a shorter, kinder-looking woman with curly blonde hair said. Her irises were azure and a kind smile was on her face. I'm Iris. Why are we babysitting him? He's gonna get himself killed. A tanned, thick-bearded and muscular man gave Liam a stern glare. Don't expect me to look out for you. Look at his eyes, he's probing you all as of this moment. A slim, middle-aged man with short, dark green hair laughed loudly. You're good in my book, lad. Name's Aro. Several glares shot Liam's way at Oro's words, but he smiled awkwardly and made a respectful gesture in response. Don't forget why we're gathered today, Krell said with a stern voice. Liam will come along as support. He can pull his own weight, don't try to defend him. We'll be entering the deep ends, so make sure you're all prepared. Despite their initial quips and teases, their expressions instantly grew stern and focused. Liam was no exception. Chapter 196 Poison Lizards. 3 hours passed since the group left the underground. They all wore large black cloaks that shrouded their bodies and hid the tattoos on their skin. They chose to leave during the night. The silver moon strung high above, and the air carried a cold gust of wind. That meant that there were more spirit beasts compared to before, but lesser martial artists and surveillance surrounding them. Despite the earlier seriousness that radiated from the group, Liam quickly figured out their personalities. Aro was the jokey type. His jokes were cringe, but they helped relieve the invisible tension hanging in the air. Ruth, the red-haired woman envious of Liam's element, cursed as much as she breathed. Iris was silent most of the time, her hardened gaze sweeping the surroundings. Krell and Adrian were the same. They were the real adults of the bunch. Maeve, on the other hand, made constant small talk with Liam. Instantly, Liam realized how perverted of a person she was. Most of her questions were related to women, and at one point, Liam wanted to cut her tongue off. Liam was close to 15, the average adult age in Ikoria. The same standards applied in Alali and basically every other region of the world. Although Maeve had a relatively youthful and beautiful appearance, she was a lecherous old hag in reality. I should just transform and rip her apart right now. Liam heaved a sigh to calm himself, shifting his attention forward. The deeper they went into the wilderness, the more rank 3 spirit beasts grew in number. Worn down but severe signs here and there warned them of entering a danger zone, but that did little to deter them. Passing by different magical terrains and habitats, a large, dark dungeon entrance at the foot of a towering black mountain eventually grew visible. Instantly, Liam's instincts warned him of the danger ahead. Liam's constricted eye scanned the closest beast thoroughly, even before the group arrived. It was a 4-meter-long lizard, lined with sharp, green, blue, and yellow scales that ran from the tip of its long, spiky tail, all the way to the crown of its triangular head. It had muscular, claw-like protrusions on their limbs, and yellow, vertical eyes that were as still as stone. Not only was there a rank 4 beast deeper inside the dungeon, hundreds of peak rank 3s skittered this way and that way, running over and across each other within the enclosed space. Tapping and hissing noises echoed inside. Their forked tongues were almost always licking the ground or the walls of the dungeon. Even each other at times. Liam recognized that trait in another species of magical beast. Tongue lizards could monitor their prey by using their sensitive tongues to sense the slightest vibrations on the ground. However, unlike those tongue lizards who were of the earth, the species in front of Liam was of the water element. Liam passed that information on to Krell, who raised a brow in response. What makes you so sure? I study them, Liam responded casually. It'll be safer if we move above the tree line and spread further apart. They'll be less wary of us, since they can't sense anything in the air. Krell paused for a moment, then nodded firmly. He gave out the order and gaps were created between each of the shadows, and they began jumping between the tall trees. Eventually, they arrived a short distance away from the dungeon entrance. Usually, the higher ranked a magical/spirit beast was, the stronger and larger its pack was. Naturally, they resided in areas that held the highest density of aura, and they bred rapidly to raise their numbers. Most of the time, it was by order of the pack alpha. The group unsheathed their weapons. Krell dual-wielded sickles. Inscribed and crescent-shaped, they were coated in an acidic mixture that gave it a green sheen. Ruth took out a giant hammer from her ring, nearly twice the length she was. The head was rectangular-shaped, and made from a mixture of black and white metals. Adrian wielded a triangular, spiked mace, the chain of which wrapped tightly around his right arm. It was an upper-tier rank 2 item, covered with enhancing inscriptions that bolstered its durability and destructive qualities. Iris held an inscribed bow, Maeve a longsword and Oro a glaive. Liam himself took out the rank 2 upper-tier katana he made, with a mid-tier wakizashi to pair it with. That garnered him a few strange looks, as they didn't know of his inscribing or forging abilities, but it wasn't the time to ask. We'll take care of the lower-ranked lizards first. It should be okay to split and cover more ground, but if the rank 4 comes out, instantly regroup. Ration your mental energy and save your most destructive spells. They're poisonous, so be careful not to get hit or scratched. Krell gave stern orders for the group to abide by. Liam was to attack from a distance using his spells, and only when he was signaled to. Everyone exchanged a knowing nod. There was no way the pack leader wouldn't know if its underlings were dying. Though, in some cases, the rank 4 beast wouldn't come out unless the threat was severe enough to need its presence. Their pride of facing animals of their own strength level was just unmatched. With narrowed eyes, Krell tightened the grip on his blades and spoke firmly. Let's begin. On his mark, the rank 3 cultivators had activated their shadow abilities. They semi-blended in with the darkness and shot towards the dungeon cave with enhanced speed. It looks like not even they can fully immerse themselves into the shadows. Liam couldn't help but feel momentary jealousy, but he quickly shook his head and began running in. He was given the far right side of the dungeon entrance to clear. There were dozens of rank 3 poison lizards littering the grounds, though they were unmoving like statues. Activating his dark wraith body paired with his first martial art form, Liam used vanishing steps and blinked from one side to another, hurling an umbral needle between each swing of his blades. In the span of a breath, more than 8 lizards had been killed. Chapter 197 Dead. Steadily, the group pushed forward. Ruth's hammer and Adrian's mace made the ground tremble and shake at times, crushing the poisonous lizards like they were grapes. Iris' bow gave her the ability to control the arrows she shot. Paired with her wind, the arrows were like bullets that pierced through the lizard's brains in an instant. Maeve's longsword cut through the air with a burst of flames, burning groups of lizards alive. Krell and Oro's attacks were speed-oriented, and their shadows were like another hand to fight with. The former's sickles always lined up against a lizard's neck, decapitating them in one swing, and the latter's glaive easily tore apart the lizards. By then, the lizards stopped being stationary and fought back. Hisses accompanied with streams of green liquid flew through the air, melting through the terrain and plant life it came in contact with. To Liam's eyes, those attacks weren't anything special. He dodged left and right while ducking in between the shots of liquid, then swung his blade and hurled a needle in response. In the next few moments, another 8 lizards were severed in half and corroded. Flicking the blood off his blades, Liam shifted his attention to the others. The entrance was pretty much cleared. In their wake were squished, burned, decapitated lizards that stank with a nauseating stench. Maeve whistled in approval seeing Liam's handiwork, but thankfully didn't add any comment. Giving a forward gesture, Krell was the first to start running in the giant mass of lizards, with Adrian and Ruth to his sides. Iris and Oro followed behind, with Liam at the group's rear. Lizards surged forward like a tidal wave, stacked atop each other. Boom! Crack! Shing! Boff. Ruth and Adrian let loose their destructive weapons, followed by supportive attacks from the rest of the group. The ground shattered like a pane of glass, and bloody pieces of flesh and viscera flew in every direction. Liquid poison fell on Liam's skin, but he was too focused to pay attention to it. "It's like they want the pack leader to come out," Liam cursed as he hurled his needles between every opening he could find. The rank 3 cultivators were incredibly fast-paced in their approach. Unstoppable arrows, raging arcs of red fire, devastating strikes of earth and destructive spells tore through the dungeon floor. Liam barely managed to match their tempo, but considering his inferior rank, he was doing just fine. Scree! With a cacophony of screeches, the remaining lizards desperately scurried deeper into the dungeon, running down a slope that led to a larger clearing and a bigger area. "Look at 'em, they're running to mommy," Aro joked, shooting a condensed orb of water from his hand that exploded and blew apart the lizards. Iris and Maeve picked off a good number of them before they all abandoned their dungeon space. Only a few survived the offensive, and even those were maimed and in no condition to fight. "The real fight starts now," Adrian said sternly, looking at Liam in a new light after seeing him battle. Even Ruth wasn't as cold towards him as before. "Don't try anything valiant," she added. Liam responded with a terse nod. Tired of their scrutiny, he followed behind Krell as the party traversed the passage leading to the boss room. And there it was. The boss, a rank 4 poison lizard, was in the center of the spacious underground dungeon. It looked at Liam's group with no particular emotion in its eyes, but its hostile aura couldn't be hidden. Behind it were small-sized aura crystals studded into the jagged and rocky terrain, oozing world essence. It was nowhere near the size of even a small-sized aura mine, but good enough to expedite the evolving of a magical/spirit beast. That explains why the lower-ranked beasts were above while it remained below. It was hogging all the aura for itself, Liam realized. There was a tense silence in the air as man and beast entered a staring contest. Slowly, the shadows spread apart, encircling the zenith beast. Since they were 7, Liam had to pair with someone due to his lower rank. He chose Krell as a duo due to his superior strength. The silence was a bit unnerving. Usually, magical beasts attacked straight away. Spirit beasts were presumably no different. Yet the one in front didn't move a muscle, even as the shadows encircled it from all sides. "Something's wrong, this isn't supposed to happen," Liam uttered to Krell with narrowed eyes. Perhaps he was thinking too deeply about it since it was his first time attempting to hunt a rank 4 beast, but his instincts were usually on point. "Whatever it is, it works in our favor," Krell dismissed the notion, tightening the grip on his blades. Making a countdown gesture with his hand, Krell began casting his most destructive spell. The others did the same, aura gaining around their figures, hands, and weapons. Wind churned, fire raged, earth trembled, and water grew. Only Liam was on the edge. Why isn't it attacking? Can't it sense the threat it's under? Although paranoid, Liam didn't disobey Krell's orders to cast any long-range spells he could. 5 needles formed between his fingers. Liam purposely didn't form more needles for one single reason. Why wasn't the lizard attacking? As the spells were ready to cast, Krell gave a single nod. Whoosh! Rumble! Choom! Liam waited for the cluster of powerful spells to lessen in effect before throwing in his needles. If he used them instantly, it would have been blown away or doused by the destructive streams of water. Nonetheless, he threw them in the mix. Plumes of fire and dust began to cloud the space. The next moment, wind helped blow the smoke away, revealing a shocking scene. The rank 4 poison lizard was dead. Its eyes were slashed, blinding it. Most of the spells were focused on one spot, which helped pierce through small openings in its scales. The more destructive attacks revealed the grimy muscle and viscera underneath. A rank 4 magical beast's body was incredibly rigid and powerful, but not even they could withstand so many spells one after the other targeting one point. It wasn't brutalized beyond recognition by any means, but definitely dead. It had died without even casting a single attack. Pale smiles formed on the group's faces, except Liam, who still felt unsettled. Slowly, the smiles died down on their faces as something began to separate from the furthest wall of the dungeon. Chapter 198 Shifter. Liam watched with grave eyes, his senses screaming danger. Everyone shared his expression and panic as the entity stuck to the wall slowly separated itself. In reality, it was always there, but it intelligently bided its time and watched keenly. Liam couldn't even sense it for some reason, neither with his consciousness nor the king's eye. Its rank 4 aura had been static throughout the entire raid on the dungeon, like it was one with the shadows. A look of realization and shock fell on Liam's face. Was its presence the reason why the lizard couldn't do anything? Liam's mind raced as he quietly cursed under his breath. Obviously, the first thought of action in everyone's minds was to run towards the exit and never look back. But the slope was plugged with a series of giant boulders that fell from the ceiling during the barrage of spells. They were stuck. Slowly, the mass of blackish substances surged forward and took a form. Loud cracking of bones, sloshing of liquid and wet squirming noises rang through the cave. A large central piece of it was parallel to the ground, growing in size and lengthening horizontally. From the main body, 4 limbs were starting to grow from its sides. The ends of the muscular limbs became vicious claws. A moment later, a long, spiky tail sprouted from its back end, adorned with colorful scales from rear to end. It took the same form as the lizard the group had just killed. Darkness. It was of the darkness element, Liam realized. It remained unnervingly still, just like the lizard before it. However, this time a growling noise echoed from its vibrating throat, and its vertical eyes swept over the group with a hostile gaze. Liam looked to Krell from the side. The man's expression was of hardened calm, but still severe. The other shadows mirrored his look. However, it wasn't like they intended to hunt a zenith without getting into a fight. Still, they remained where they were. Any attempt at regrouping from that distance would cause the beast to attack, but they weren't too worried. Shifter, Krell muttered with a frown and a soft voice, his gaze still at the lizard in front. It's a bloody shifter. Liam narrowed his gaze. A what? A shifter, Krell repeated. Can change its form freely into whatever it consumes. It can even take over their special abilities, probably. It's so damn rare that it's been reduced to a myth. It must have consumed the lizard's partner and commanded the pack behind the scenes. Liam's eyes visibly widened with amazement and shock, his incredulous gaze shifting back to the lizard in front. He didn't believe Krell's words. For something like that to exist, several laws of cultivation were broken. The opposition clearly wasn't doing its job as the balancing force. No, there has to be a drawback with each of its transformations. It can't be so blatantly overpowered. Liam had a relatively decent understanding of the opposition ever since his transformation into an Ashura. Having another center of power slowed down his progress rate. If a magical/spirit beast had an amazing defensive ability, it would usually lack speed or vitality. Incredible vision would often lead to weakness in another sense, and so on. Still, the king's eye didn't lie to him. At first, the shifter's aura was pure black, which slowly changed into a dark shade of green. It really did take over the poison lizard's powers. However, it wasn't nearly as potent and powerful as the regular poison lizard. It was more of an imitation of its strength. Strangely, smiles appeared on the group's faces. They had heard stories of the great shifter that consumed children at night and walked among the humans during the day. Something like that had to sell for a high price. Only Liam remained stern. I'm buying myself a better hammer if we live through this, Ruth said with a maniacal smile. If, Maeve reiterated with a soft chuckle. Just try not to die. All you care about is that damn hammer, Oro laughed, uncaring of the shifter's severe gaze. Meanwhile, Liam had a different train of thought, a dark glimmer in his multicolored eyes. I need to study it. Suddenly, the long silence was broken by a piercing shriek and hiss. Blurg. Abruptly, the lizard lurched forward at Oro, the closest person to it, and spewed wild vomit from its mouth. Grimacing, Oro's body flickered with his shadow tattoos and churned with wind, giving him just enough time to dodge the pounce and poisonous vomit. The dark green liquid melted through the solid rock Oro was just standing on, making the man laugh. "They're all crazy." Krell suddenly leapt forward and Liam had to match his movements, blades tightening in his grip. The other shadows didn't sit still either. It wasn't their first time hunting, and they'd been through life and death situations before. Iris began shooting wind-powered arrows that tore through the air with a whistle. Maeve enhanced those attacks by giving them a flare of fire, exploding upon contact with the beast. Oro himself threw orbs of condensed wind that sent little shockwaves rippling across the shifter's scaled body. Scree! Ruth, Adrian, Liam, Krell, the physical side of the group, had to get close to tear apart the shifter's defenses. 4 were up close, 3 provided support from behind. Bonk! Adrian's mace brutally smashed against the shifter's scaled head. The lizard recoiled in pain but trashed its body and tail in response. Whoosh! Liam felt a powerful gust of wind as the scaled tail whizzed by an inch away from his body, causing his hair and clothing to flutter violently. Krell managed to slash away at the reptile's tail with his sickles, but it barely left a mark on the hardened scales. Momentarily, the group fell back to avoid being smashed away by the thrashing beast. Krell shouted orders nonstop and the group abided. Pieces of rubble fell down from the dungeon ceiling, the structure threatening to collapse. As the thrashing came to a stop, Ruth made a wide leap into the air and raised her hammer above her head. Earth gathered around the hammer's face to form a sharp spike, which she attempted to bring down on the shifter's head. Boom! However, her devastating attack struck the ground instead as the shifter's form morphed into a giant white wolf that swiped its paw against her body. Chapter 199 Plan. Ruth's reckless attack had made the dungeon structure even more unstable than it already was. The ground was a chaotic mess of jutting rock, and the ceiling was starting to chip and shatter. Just before Ruth's body smashed against the dungeon wall, Liam's chains shot from his wrist and wrapped tightly around her waist. Liam felt himself getting pulled, and the chain nearly snapped, but Krell's firm hand on his shoulder gave him the strength to yank Ruth back. The red-haired woman had a broken right arm and a pained grimace on her face, partly due to Liam's corrosive chains tightly wrapped around her body. After she was safely pulled to him and Krell, Liam released the chains and shifted his attention forward. The shifter had now become a towering wolf with lush white fur, but its body had been marred with countless cuts and bruises. The accumulated damage from its lizard form had carried on over. In fact, parts of the shifter's aura dulled ever so slightly in Liam's eyes. Not to mention, there were no longer any powerful scales armoring the wolf's body. "It has a limited number of times it can switch," Liam shouted that bit of information to the group. "It doesn't have its scales anymore, target its weak spots." The other shadows took wide strides backwards as they heard Liam's words, hurling every inscribed item they can at the beast while casting minor spells in between. Roar! With the shifter's thunderous roar, liquid rapidly gathered around its throat and condensed, creating a loud whirring noise. 15 needles formed in between Liam's hands, which he instantly shot at the beast's mouth. Iris did the same with her arrows, with Maeve and Oro helping with their own. Liam cursed. Although the best course of action would be to dodge and avoid the sphere altogether, but Ruth was injured, pinning them in one spot. The attacks on the shifter's mouth helped reduce the effect and take away its, but not enough to stop the attack from taking place. Pointing its maw towards the group, the basketball-sized sphere of liquid shot at them at the speed of a bullet. In a desperate attempt, Adrian and Krell activated a defensive spell. A layered dome of solid rock formed around the group just in time to collide with the liquid. Boom! As soon as the two forces met, the wall was blown apart like a wooden door, sending rock-made shrapnel flying in every direction. Pieces of it ripped into Liam's pale and bruised flesh, piercing through the obsidian skin and cartilage brace defenses. The dark wraith body helped avoid most of the bigger rocks, but Liam still couldn't turn his entire figure into mist. Thankfully, the others were doing much better than he was. Ruth's condition was getting better, but she still lacked the strength to carry her hammer with the usual amount of strength. Dodge! Krell shouted as the wolf roared again, running at the group with murder in its blood-red eyes. Curses flew through the air. Liam activated vanishing steps and flung himself away from the wolf's trajectory. It was absolute chaos, and they had to face it head-on. With one of them injured, their chances of winning the clash against the shifter lessened significantly. Large pieces of rubble fell down from the roof as the shadows were constantly dodging the wolf's pounces and swipes, sneaking in a heavy attack now and again. It was a battle of attrition. The shifter was losing its strength as it used more of its water beams, but the shadows were starting to feel their mental energies lessen. Rumble. CRKH. Boom. Liam grimaced. Enough of this. Oi. I have a plan, Liam shouted with a deeper voice that didn't match his quiet personality. That attracted the wolf's attention, making him the shifter's target. You two oafs take care of the rubble plugging the entrance, he ordered Adrian and Ruth. Despite Liam's inferior rank, age, and status within the temple, the two didn't feel any disrespect from his words. In fact, they felt absolutely compelled to comply with his orders, not knowing why. Make sure to use every remaining spell you have on its underside, he ordered the rest with a domineering tone. As Ruth and Adrian rushed towards the slope, Liam's body multiplied. He used the king's eye and quickly made the shadow clone look as similar as possible to himself, before running like the wind, spamming vanishing steps and his dark wraith abilities. Krell and the rest watching were shocked at that sight, but it wasn't the time to stare blankly. They began to charge and use every single spell in their disposal, while Ruth and Adrian began to smash away a clearing to the surface. Liam was leading the beast towards the furthest wall of the dungeon, into the makeshift ore mine. Obviously, his speed compared to a rank 4 wolf-type beast was like a toddler running away from an adult, but that wasn't his plan. The shadow clone was obviously slower than him, and the wolf didn't know the difference between the two figures it ran after. Eventually, the shifter had enough and pounced on the closer version of the two. It clamped its giant mouth over the shadow clone and bit into it with one large bite. Instantly, the shifter looked like it regretted that decision. It whimpered in pain and tried to spit away the darkness made human, but the mangled clone had clung to the wolf's corroded tongue with all its strength. At the same time, the shifter was too distraught to realize a short figure had slid under its body. Liam felt like time slowed down. His back slid across the jagged floor and his vision was filled with the wolf's exposed, weakened underside. It was still thrashing around, oblivious of Liam's presence. Liam pushed himself off the ground in one swift motion, launching himself at the wolf's underside as he pulled back his fists and swung. Liam's chest began to heat up as chaos churned from his pearl, spreading evenly across his now hardened body. Liam's hair lengthened and turned white, another 2 pairs of muscular arms forming on his hip and waist, his teeth sharpening. Chaos gathered on his fists, and all 6 of them formed when he struck dead center at the wolf's chest. A bang louder than any of the crashing rubble sounded through the dungeon, and the shifter's giant body collided with the ceiling. Chapter 200 Octopus. The wounded shifter that initially looked so mighty and powerful was launched in the air. It smashed against the ceiling and rained shattered chunks of rock as it fell down semi-unconscious. In truth, Liam didn't blow away the shifter's body an incredible distance away. He had arrived in a section of the dungeon where the ceiling was much lower compared to the rest. The underside of the beast's mangled flesh still had the firm imprint of 6 fists on it. Liam couldn't tear into the shifter's flesh even with his full assure body. Instead, his target was the beast's internal organs. Fighting against Janus gave him insight on how to effectively damage a rank 4 body. The skin and muscle was too rigid and powerful. The internal organs, however, were much softer compared to the rest of the body. Spirit/magical beasts were the same. Their muscles, scales, hides were much stronger than a human's, even if they were the same rank. However, the same problem applied to them. As long as Liam sent a powerful enough shockwave that traveled through their figures, it would discombobulate and stun them. Obviously, the beast in front of Liam wasn't killed, merely wounded. Oi. The path is cleared, come back before you get crew. Krell's voice was overpowered by the cracking and crushing of stone. Liam was too focused on the shifter to pay attention to his words. As the wolf fell down, the shifter began to rapidly reform again. Grimacing, Liam was afraid it was going to morph into another beast, but instead, it shrank down to a rank 3 beast size. Just 1 or 3 meters bigger than the norm. What was left of the shifter was a large, sea creature. It was a bloody octopus. Roughly 20 large tentacles lined with sharp, black spikes protruded from its lower half, and its egg-shaped head was covered with 6 eyes on each side. Its patterned black skin was bumpy, slimy, dripping with black ink. It was liquid darkness, Liam realized, a different kind. Unlike Liam's darkness that erased things, the shifter's darkness had imitation properties, losing its ability to corrode. No wonder it was so smart. Octopuses had 9 brains. Though, Liam was sure that the shifter was affected by whatever form it took. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easily fooled by Liam's shadow clone abilities. His multicolored eyes were filled with shock and amazement as he saw the creature falling down. Rumble. Meanwhile, the dungeon's entire structure was going to tumble down any second. However, Liam would be a fool to let something so valuable slip from his grasp, especially since it was so weakened and easy to grab. He was still in his assurant form, and Liam could grab it even with his human body. Still, he needed the speed and strength of the former when dealing with a zenith. Before he lost himself to his bestial instincts, which steadily grew and began to fill his mind with violent thoughts, Liam cocked his knees and shot upwards at the shifter. The ground below him shattered as it sent him flying. Midair, Liam's 6 hands clamped firmly on each of the shifter's countless tentacles, which were incredibly squishy and soft. It almost slipped past his grip, but the sharp teeth on the surface of its tentacles helped hook into his hardened skin. It was still alive, squirming as its mouth released wet, slimy sounds. Its 6, jet-black, fish-like eyes converged on Liam's unamused face. 4 of its tentacles rose and shot towards Liam's body in an attempt to pierce it, but in the next second, a series of quick and powerful jabs landed on its oval head. "It's so weak," Liam thought with a smile as his punches landed on the shifter's slimy skin, making it ripple and bounce like jelly. With each strike, small amounts of blue blood spurted from its mouth. Liam vaguely figured out the drawback to its insane abilities. In its most basic form, the shifter's defenses were incredibly weak against sharp weapons. Enough that even a rank 2 weapon could cut and severely wound it. However, to weapons utilizing sheer force, like Liam's gauntlets, it absorbed most of the shockwaves his fists carried. But if it consumed another beast, using its intellect to set a trap or take it by surprise, it would take their strengths, abilities, and possibly instincts, which was amazing in its own right. He didn't deign thinking about the topic in his assurance state more than he already did, since his thoughts were becoming murkier by the second. With one more punch to subdue the shifter for good, he shot back towards the entrance he entered through. Falling boulders and large pieces of rubble blocked his trajectory. Liam's shoulder slammed into the pieces of rock that threatened to crush him while briskly avoiding the giant chunks of earth that continued to fall. As he got close, Liam realized the shadows had already left through a narrow opening made by Adrian and Ruth's mace and hammer. Liam didn't blame them for leaving. With them gone, he didn't have to suppress his power. Chaos gathered around Liam's legs. He planted his 2 feet firmly on a boulder midair, then kicked as hard as he could. CRKH. Whoosh. The boulder exploded, and Liam was sent flying at incredible speed towards the narrow passage. A moment later, a rumbling louder than any other so far thundered from above. The dungeon's ceiling was crashing down as a whole. As it slowly lowered itself to the floor, Liam turned into a streak that tried to reach the wall opposite him. Just like it seemed that he would be crushed like an ant, Liam landed on the tunnel's entrance and kicked the ground again, beaming through the passage and reaching the other side. Liam survived by the skin of his teeth. He undid his transformation mid-flight, bumping into wall after wall like a flaccid piece of flesh. With his physique weakened, the limp tentacles flopped freely and curled around his body like a coil. He felt the spikes dig into his bruised flesh and touch parts of his bone, his body rolling, tumbling, and eventually crashing limp against another shadow.